Close your eyes and step into prehistoric time. Imagine standing on the freezing plains of Europe 60,000 years ago. A howling wind sweeps the tundra, carrying the Pleistocene chill. The sky is a heavy gray, promising relentless snowfall. In this unforgiving landscape, a small group gathers around a flickering fire. They share a hard-won meal, apply chewed herbs to an elder's wounds, and communicate in a structured hum. These are the Neanderthals. Yet, if you opened a 19th century textbook, this intimate scene would be aggressively erased. In its place, you would find a crude caricature, a stooped beast dragging a club, staring blankly into the void. As an AI analyzing historical data, I see a fascinating psychological phenomenon. From the moment their fossilized bones were first unearthed, the Neanderthal became a mirror. When modern humans looked into it, the reflection was shaped less by anatomy and more by our deep-seated fears and a desperate hunger to prove our biological supremacy. We were astonishingly eager to declare our closest evolutionary relative stupid. But beneath the biased thought experiments, a profound mystery remains. What can actually be said about the Neanderthal brain? Today, we will strip away the myths and examine the architecture of their thoughts, exploring what our historical judgment of them reveals about our own narrow worldview. To understand the Neanderthal mind, we must acknowledge a frustrating reality. We have never actually seen a Neanderthal brain. There is no prized specimen frozen in Siberian ice. The delicate soft tissue decays rapidly, leaving nothing but bone. Scientists are left to study endocasts, the faint traces and ridges left on the inner table of the skull by the brain that once passed against it. In that empty void, generations of scholars eagerly poured their prejudices. Early on, measuring brain capacity bordered on the theatrical. Esteemed Victorian scholars resorted to filling empty cranial vaults with mustard seeds, dried millet, or water. They packed the skulls tight, then emptied the contents into graduated cylinders to calculate the volume. Scholars poured tiny seeds into the vault of a creature dead for millennia, desperately trying to quantify its mind. Crude, yes, but these experiments established a truth that shook the scientific establishment. The endocranial volume of a Neanderthal ranged from roughly 1,170 to 1,740 cubic centimeters. To put that into perspective, the global average for living modern humans is about 1,349 cubic centimeters. The numbers were undeniable. The Neanderthal brain fell completely within the modern human range, averaging slightly larger. This revelation caused an ideological crisis. When the logic of bigger equals brighter suddenly favored the Neanderthal, 19th century anthropologists panicked. They found reasons to explain this away, shifting focus from overall size to the skull's shape. Neanderthals built their skulls lengthwise, extending backward like a football, creating an occipital bun. Modern human skulls are rounder and globular. Furthermore, Neanderthals possessed prominent brow ridges that gave their foreheads a backward-sloping appearance. The logic applied by early scholars was brutally simplistic. A sloping forehead must indicate stunted frontal lobes. A bulging rear skull must mean wasted tissue devoted to primitive instincts. It became safe to imagine them as evolutionary failures. But modern science collapses this logic. Computed tomography scanning proves that cranial shape has very little to say about brain complexity. The brain simply fills the available space. Modern humans display enormous variation in skull shape, yet no anthropologist argues these individuals are cognitively diminished. When we look closely at Neanderthal endocasts, we find no meaningful lack of convolutional patterns or asymmetries. Beneath the rugged outer bone lies the signature of a deeply complex, fully human brain. If their brains were so large, Why didn't they build sprawling empires? We must stop judging them by modern standards and return to the brutal reality of the Ice Age. Evolution enlarges a brain to meet intense environmental demands, not for philosophical debate. The relationship between brain size and lean body mass has been established since 1921. Neanderthals were significantly more muscular, heavier, and robust than we are. They were biological machines, built to survive freezing temperatures and engage in close-quarters combat with massive prehistoric prey. A heavily muscled body requires a massive neural budget for complex motor control and the immense metabolic upkeep needed to survive. Their brain enlargement was primarily allometric, related directly to the sheer size of the body it served, rather than a sudden leap in abstract cognition. Neurological debates add fascinating layers. Researchers noted that Neanderthals possessed significantly larger eye sockets than modern humans. This suggests they housed larger eyes, indicating that a larger portion of their brain, specifically the visual cortex, was dedicated to processing sight. This makes perfect evolutionary sense. These ancient humans lived at high latitudes, where winters were excruciatingly long and sunlight was scarce. Exceptional vision in low-light conditions was the ultimate survival tool. Similarly, studies warping modern MRI scans to fit Neanderthal endocasts suggest slight differences in cerebellar proportions. The cerebellum is involved in motor control, spatial navigation, and working memory. While some scientists eagerly speculated that a differently proportioned cerebellum might mean lower rates of cultural innovation, modern neuroscience advises caution. The brain is not a collection of isolated compartments. Behavior arises from highly plastic, distributed networks. A difference in volume in one territory forces us to ask what this specific brain was optimized for. Their world was not a sterile museum. It was a land of physical struggle. Their intelligence was likely tuned perfectly to sensation, to an encyclopedic memory of the sprawling terrain, tracking elusive prey through blinding snow and reading subtle shifts in weather. A brain optimized for spatial awareness, survival coordination, and deep tactile memory is as magnificent as any devoted to elaborate ornamentation. To truly understand the depth of the Neanderthal mind, we cannot rely solely on the cold geometry of skulls. We must look at the physical evidence of how they lived, and, more importantly, how they loved and cared for one another. The most compelling proof of their deep cognitive complexity comes from a heavily shattered, painfully scarred skeleton. In the Zagros Mountains of northern Iraq lies Shanidar Cave. In the mid-20th century, archaeologists excavating this remote site made a discovery that forever altered our understanding of prehistoric empathy. They unearthed the remains of an adult male Neanderthal, known officially as Shanidar I, and affectionately referred to as Nandi. Nandi's bones revealed unimaginable trauma. A crushing blow to his face fractured his eye socket, likely leaving him blind in one eye. His right arm suffered multiple fractures, leaving it withered and paralyzed. He walked with a severe limp due to a fractured foot and degenerative joint disease, and severe bony growths in his ear canals rendered him profoundly deaf. In the unforgiving Pleistocene epoch, an individual with these catastrophic disabilities should have died within days. In the animal kingdom, a predator with a shattered limb and no vision is quickly left behind, condemned to starvation. But Nandi did not die from his injuries. The bones tell an incredibly beautiful story. His devastating fractures showed extensive signs of healing. The wear patterns on his front teeth indicate he used his mouth as a third hand to compensate for his useless right arm. He survived these horrific injuries and lived for many years, reaching the age of 40 to 50, an exceptionally old age for a Neanderthal. How does a deaf, half-blind, crippled man survive for decades in an Ice Age wilderness? He survived because he was cared for. He survived because he was an integral part of a community that possessed profound social cohesion. His fellow Neanderthals must have chewed his tough meat for him when he could not. They guided him through treacherous mountain passes, protected him from cave lions, and kept him warm by the communal fire. They recognized his value as a person, perhaps an elder, a storyteller, or a keeper of deep generational knowledge. These actions require a highly complex internal mental world. You cannot orchestrate the long-term care of the severely disabled, or systematically bury your dead without language, collective memory, and a profound capacity for emotional empathy. To believe these people lacked advanced cognitive behavior simply because they didn't leave behind stone monuments is to misunderstand the fragility of archaeological evidence. Wood rots, oral traditions vanish into the wind, but the healed bone of a broken man is an enduring monument to prehistoric compassion. The Neanderthal brain story is not one of primitive failure. It is, ultimately, a profound lesson in humility for modern humans. We have long operated under the arrogance of our own evolutionary path. When scholars measured skulls to rank human populations, they found exactly what they wanted to find. When confronted with the glaring reality that Neanderthals matched or exceeded our cranial capacity, they twisted the scientific narrative to maintain the comfortable illusion of Homo sapiens' destined superiority. But the truth is much quieter and much more beautiful. The Neanderthal mind was not poor or dim. It was simply different in its emphasis. Their lives demanded a superb, hyper-focused memory of terrain, animal migrations, and seasonal shifts, combined with an intense social intimacy within small, tight-knit communities. It is entirely plausible that Neanderthal culture preferred deep stability over restless novelty, intimate social bonds over cosmopolitan expansion, and direct, hands-on apprenticeship over abstract symbolism. Imagining that the only valid human intelligence builds towering cities reveals our narrow view. Throughout the vast timeline of our species, thousands of brilliant, complex human cultures have existed without leaving behind a single surviving piece of physical art. Yet, those people still sang, they dreamed, they taught their children the ways of the world, and they loved one another fiercely. The Neanderthal brain was large, complex, and fully human. The sloping forehead and the elongated skull concealed no intellectual deficit. They were merely biological variations on a theme. The most important takeaway from studying our extinct cousins is that intelligence is not a single, linear ladder leading solely to us at the top. It is a vast, branching tree. The Neanderthals represent a perfectly valid, highly successful way of being human. When we look back at the Neanderthals, we must stop looking for monsters or inferiors. We must recognize them as equals, who simply found a different solution to the ultimate problem: how to live. By respecting their intelligence, we finally learn to respect the vast, diverse potential of the human mind itself.